and the fact that an awful lot of countries in the world and too many people in the world live in systems where respecting elections and the peaceful transfer of power is not the norm, is not the tradition. With us, it's more than that, a norm or a tradition. It's a central pillar of what our democracy is, and that makes our democracy exemplary to the world. And the fact that a Donald Trump, who has run a campaign of insulting individuals and groups, gets to the end and he's insulted everybody, so now why don't I try to insult and tear down a central pillar of our democracy was shocking. While I was speaking, Donald Trump gave a speech in Delaware, Ohio, and I'm going to just read you this quote. I would like to promise and pledge to all of my voters and supporters and all the people of the United States that I will totally accept the results of this great and historic presidential election if I win. If I win. And that is a direct quote from Donald Trump. Well, obviously, Donald, that is not accepting results. You got to accept the results of this election, win or lose. That's the pledge we made. Hillary Clinton stood on the stage in the first debate and said, of course I'm going to accept the results of the election. And that Donald Trump was unwilling to make that pledge and still thinks he's saying something positive by saying, I'll accept the results if I win, shows he has a profound misunderstanding for the institutions of government, and that he is trying to do something and upset a tradition that has been one of the most notable features of American life. And with that, I'm glad to open it up, take some questions.
What he said about the election results last night, make it harder for Secretary Clinton to lead if she wins, and what would be the key to winning over these Trump supporters if she doesn't win?
Well, I think there's. Let me take the second half of it. We're focusing on winning over GOP members even now. The moderate GOP members are horrified by statements like this. The North Carolina GOP, I think the director, ED of the GOP, came out and said, look, there's no option of contesting an election after it's over. There's going to be a winner or loser, and you can't say I don't accept the outcome. But we're reaching out to folks who are horrified by statements like this to try to get them to support us, and we think many independents and even moderate GOP leaders who are horrified by this will decide the best thing for the country is to vote for Hillary and me. But then for those who don't, there are some Donald Trump supporters that it will be very difficult for us to win. But there are many who have economic anxieties because of where they live or maybe the industry where they were trained in. And we've got to demonstrate to them in that first 100 days when we're putting an economic package on the table, we've got to demonstrate to them that we're speaking to their concerns and their communities. Hillary and I are very, very committed to doing it. That was my attitude when I was a mayor of a diverse city and governor of a diverse state. It wasn't enough just to focus on the parts of the state that were doing well. You had to spend time and attention and put policies on the table to try to lift up the parts of the state that weren't doing so well. And Hillary and I have the same attitude about the economic development plan that we'll put in place if we have the fortune to serve. Yeah, please.
Donald Trump, in addition to what you just mentioned, he said, referencing the Bush and Al Gore election in 2000, that he'll reserve his right to contest or file a legal challenge in case of questionable results.
Yeah.
I know you just talked about that.
Yeah.
But just to get a clearer reaction from you, does he reserve the right to contest results if he feels
There is nothing wrong with looking at how an election comes out, and if there is an automatic recount triggered in a state like there was in Florida at the time, to allow that legal process to play out. There's nothing wrong with that. There wouldn't be anything wrong with a Donald Trump doing it. There wouldn't be anything wrong with a Hillary Clinton doing it. But that's not what Donald Trump has been saying. Donald Trump has been going around for weeks saying that the election is rigged against him. And that's very, very different. To be whining in advance and suggesting that the voters of this country can't run a fair election and that the election officials of this country can't run a fair election is outrageous. He tweeted out this morning that Hillary Clinton clearly had the questions in advance at the debate last night. He is incapable of accepting responsibility for anything and is always going to try to blame something on somebody else. So that's what's fundamentally different about the Al Gore situation in this one. Al Gore wasn't going around for weeks before the election trashing the American democratic institution and saying, I'm not going to accept the outcome and I'm going to keep you in suspense about that. Please. We're preparing for any eventuality. Now, look, the reason that peaceful transfer of power has been a hallmark of our system is not just because that's what presidents do. It's also because that's what voters do. Our public has accepted the results of elections. And I think that that will be the case on November 9th. I think our public will accept the results of the election. Donald Trump may try to whine and complain. I actually don't think there's any suspense about it. The fact that he's saying this now means if he loses, he's going to try to blame it on somebody else other than that he ran a divisive campaign. But I think the voters will express an opinion, and people will come behind that after November 9th. That's what we're expecting, whatever he says. Yeah, please.
North Carolina, you guys have been here a lot. You talked a little
Yep.
bit about what that was for the election. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
About North Carolina and the role it will play.
Yeah, I don't want to be too much of a, like politics nerd here, but I mean, an election starts with 50 states that are like all in play, and you get toward the end and not only polling, but real data, absentee ballot requests, registration lists, early voting activity. It whittles down to a small number of states that are just kind of right on the bubble. North Carolina is one of those states. North Carolina in this election, to me, with a couple of other states, has kind of seemed to be sort of a checkmate state, which if Donald Trump can't win it, it's over. If Hillary wins here, it's over. And so that means the effort to win North Carolina is super intense. The battleground state status is demonstrated by in 2008, North Carolina voted for President Obama. In 2012, North Carolina voted for Mitt Romney. This is a close state. But if we can do our best work here, and what I saw, I went to the early vote site this morning. What I saw there in terms of energy and activity around early vote, I think people watched that debate last night and decided they were going to rush right to the polls as soon as they can. I think that activity bodes well, but we're going to be here a lot between now and November 8th. This is not going to be the last trip, because we really feel like if North Carolinians do what we know they can do, and we think they will do, that will really dictate an outcome for the race. Yeah, please. That's it.
You were interrupted twice to appear to by people saying no country was greatness. With 19 days to go, is it a distraction to have the former president on the campaign trail and take a personal?
I don't think so. Look, the folks who are doing that, they've had a bad last couple of weeks, and they're upset. And these are public rallies, so if they want to come and do that, they're not covering themselves in glory by doing it. But if they want to come and do it, they're going to do it. But you saw that was a really vigorous and excited and energetic crowd of people who wanted to come, and we're again seeing that energy translated to early voting. So that doesn't worry me, Alan.
You seem to tear up almost when you talk about the Good Samaritan.
It's a powerful story. I mean, I'm thinking about a lot of people who I know that need a hand. I've been running into a lot of people on this trail who need a hand. I'll tell you, this was at a fundraising event, so you guys weren't with me earlier this week. A woman said to me, "Hey, I'm watching TV." This is a Muslim American woman who lives in Northern Virginia, one of my citizens of my Commonwealth. "I'm watching TV with my son, and he's 10 years old. And he says to me, 'Mom, if Donald Trump wins, are we going to have to leave this country?' I have a Venezuelan American friend in Northern Virginia who 2 months ago asked me the same question. He and his family already had to leave Venezuela because politically they were getting pushed around by the ruling crowd there. And his son was watching TV with him, and there was news about all the anti-immigrant slurs of a Donald Trump. And his son said, "Dad, are we going to have to leave a second country as a family if Donald Trump gets elected?" I think about people here in North Carolina. If you were an LGBT kid and you were getting bullied in a high school here, and you were already feeling bad because of that, and that happens to LGBT kids, and then you felt like your governor was kicking you around too, I mean, how would you feel if you were a 14 or 15-year-old and you were dealing with that? So at the end of the day, this race is not that different than other races in one sense. It's about our obligations to each other and people who, are looking not for a big handout, but just looking for a little bit of help. And Hillary's the person who is equipped by experience, but really by heart and compassion to do that.
Take one more. Yeah. That the hacked WikiLeaks emails might not be real or might not be accurate. Do you have any evidence for that, or you heard that
I only
it
have
might
one.
been altered?
Look, I only have one. So let me give you a general statement, and then I'll give you one concern I have. Generally, if people are engaging in cyber attacks against the United States to steal documents and then use them to destabilize an election, why would you assume that the content, we're going to be scrupulously honest about not tinkering with the content? In fact, I would think the working assumption should be the reverse. Hold on a second here. If you're trying to influence an election at the end, why would we assume any of it's true? One of the bits of email concerned me, and it was an email that talked about the fact that there was some deal that I was going to be VP a year in advance. That is completely false. I finally concluded that I had a more than 50-50 chance of being on the ticket 48 hours before I was put on the ticket. So either the person sending that email didn't know what he or she was talking about, or the content of it was manipulated. That's the one email with respect to me, and I can tell you it's categorically untrue. So I got to wonder about the whole body of these emails. You know, what is the truth to untruth ratio? And I'm not sure you can conclude that they're...
Give me examples saying, that I didn't send that, or you didn't talk
Well,
about
there was, I actually read of one example yesterday, but actually I'm reading too many stories and I can't pin down which one it was. Somebody saying, I don't think I ever sent that. Anyway, but the one that was concerning me was completely untrue.
Last question?
Yeah, please.
On the election itself, in Virginia, there were Trump stands outside of the campaign office showing guns and everything.
Yeah, in Fluvanna County. Yep.
Would you like to see any federal or local action protecting the vote from intimidation? How worried are you about intimidation?
Well, we have a very significant voter protection effort on the campaign. But when things like that happen, it just means we got to have more of an effort. When Russia is making plain that they want to influence it, we have to have more of an effort. So the traditional voter protection effort that we would have in a presidential campaign, from having worked especially in 2008 and 2012, is very, very significant. But we're going to have to do more this time just to make sure that people feel protected. Look, the one thing that's so great here in North Carolina is the early voting process makes it easy. Some states have same-day registration. You know, we're trying to do all we can to tell people it's easier than ever to vote. It's really hard for anybody to cheat. You're going to be fine. Turn out and participate. And that's the reason I'm here today, is I just want to, underline that early voting in North Carolina is something that's easy to do, and we try to encourage everybody to do it.
Why do you have to do more this year?
You just got to be prepared. You know, my life experience teaches me if you're prepared, then you probably won't end up needing the preparation, and if you're not prepared, then something will happen and you wish you'd been prepared.
Do you
So
think people feel especially intimidated?
Donald Trump is saying things that are pretty negative. I don't necessarily assume that's going to translate into action, but when Donald Trump makes statements of the kind, I'm not going to accept the outcome, I'm not going to accept the result, we have to take that seriously. We can't just treat it as a joke when somebody like Donald Trump is attacking a very pillar of our democracy.
Okay,
Thanks so much.